Welcome to the latest edition of our regular weekend backlog bonanza. We're going to catch up on a number of things today, including a preview of the Week 7 makers that are imminently arriving for the latest set of 4YMM, or 4 Years of Mario Maker, which we have been covering pretty much since it launched at the end of June. Not much of it left. But in the meantime, we have a bit of spillover from the 4YMM stream of the levels from Week 6. If my counting is correct, I think this was Week 6. Yes, that's right. And this was the Celeste music level by Death Despise, entitled Your Own Worst Enemy. We made a fair amount of progress on it. In the last stream, we managed to get all of the pink coins in what is the red strawberry route. That took us to the cake that is not quite the true ending. And in order to achieve the true ending, we need to preserve the golden strawberry, which is the key that is granted at the beginning of the level. So basically we need to clear all of the optional objectives from the start without the use of a checkpoint. Now, the complication that's introduced is that there is a slight variation in timing. And it makes things a little bit more complex because of the way you spawn into the zone after checkpoint 2. We'll just get into that and we'll grind away at this and practice it and hopefully get that down. So it'll be good to give this a look and a listen once again. And like I said, it is a Celeste music level that, as we saw in the previous stream, does have a bit of on-off state control for the first segment that overlays different instruments on a second pass when the switches come back on. Ellis Maiden, welcome, and Bowser Jr. as well. Welcome to the stream. Okay. So yeah, like I said, we did complete one of the 2 optional objectives in the last stream. And we'll see how long it takes to wrap this up, because this is so far the only secret in 4YMM that I have not yet done. And of course it comes with a certain ideological commitment to rewarding levels that have some kind of achievement for clearing without checkpoints. I think it is fundamentally within reach, just very difficult once you get past checkpoint 2. And it also takes a bit of warm-up to get back to that spot with any level of consistency at all, so we need to get our eyes and our fingers back in the game, and we'll see how long it takes to put this together. And hey, Julian, it's going alright. Just wrapping this up because this was the only thing I've failed to do so far across all of 4YMM. And we'll see. I mean, I could be on this for another hour. Who knows how long it's going to take, but it seemed like a commitment to completionism did need to be a serious commitment. So yeah, I hope you are well on your end also. I know you had taken off to the holiday that you went on earlier in the week, and I hope that went well. And also that the Morton level has gotten the warm reception that it so richly deserves. And yeah, I mean, I haven't really kept up with the metrics to see how Week 6 levels have been doing. Oh, this is by far the hardest cake. I don't think there's anything that really comes close to it so far. I had a bit of trouble with the pink coin route after CP2, even with the checkpoint. And the fact that the timing does change slightly, depending on how you spawn into CP2, whether it's from the checkpoint flag or from the pipe, does add a significant amount of time to this, which is why I was unable to do it on mainstream. I mean, I can get into the last zone past CP2 fairly consistently. I mean, I'm not doing it right now, but it's because I'm still getting warmed up. Oh, just got home, okay. Oh, welcome home. And yeah, I don't know, Julian, if we had discussed whether you had played Celeste as well. It's actually kind of interesting that this level has all of these short jumps that flow very immediately, and that the physics, even though they are Mario physics, feel very much like they are faithful to the Celeste gameplay. Because Celeste has a particular kind of pacing and precision as a platformer that's very distinct. But the way you're just kind of doing a lot of controlled medium jumps with this constant aerial motion, it's actually quite close to the real thing. I mean, without the wall cling, obviously, but surprisingly close to actual Celeste. Hey, DI Program. So, DI Program, you will notice that I got first clear on the escape room. And if you are able to stay a little bit longer, what I hope to do later in the stream is I can walk through what my solution to it was. And I'd actually like to hear from you a bit as a level creator anyway, if you're sticking around for that, because I'm pretty sure I didn't figure out the passcode cipher the intended way. Now, I know as soon as I say that, you are probably thinking about, oh my goodness, do I have to patch the level? You probably don't have to patch the level. I think it's sort of fundamental in the design that there's not much you can do with the design to eliminate the method that I took. But yes, I indeed got it by deduction, and pretty much skipped having to deal with the numerical codes entirely. It did not take long at all, actually. I was surprised at how quickly I managed to narrow it down. It was basically just one little adjustment I needed to make to my assumptions. But so it wasn't quite the first code I tried, but it was fairly close. I just needed to make one change to my approach, and it came together very quickly. But yeah, obviously it was not the kind of thing that would have really been playable on stream, given that it was just, you know, staring at the screenshot of the code room and basically jotting down some notes. I think the design of the code is fundamentally vulnerable to deduction. I don't think there's any way around it in the current design. And I think that's okay. Because, honestly, I mean, apart from the fact that, you know, I basically skipped most of the clues that you worked so hard to put in, from a player's perspective, it actually feels fine. You know, as far as cheese goes, because this is kind of like a puzzle-solving cheese. But that's because, you know, from a sort of escape room perspective, a lot of code-breaking, decipherment, cryptanalysis, etc. does happen through skipping what are sometimes supposed to be the intended steps anyway. And so as a player, I'm not too concerned about that. Like, as the player, I still actually have no idea what's going on with most of the clues that you put in. I still don't understand most of what's going on with the dice. Yeah, I'll talk about that when I actually get a chance to show you the level and show you how I did it, because my method of deduction was not, like, something to do with brute force. Like, it was something that actually simplified the problem considerably. But yeah, very satisfying when I did get it, even though I never properly read the clues. Okay, so this is the hard part. When you spawn in through the pipe rather than through a checkpoint, you get really pressed for time because you're actually one tile behind the initial timing, and it actually makes a huge difference because of how fast the auto-scroll goes in this section. Also, one thing I didn't point about this level the last time I played it is that you can tell that there's a lot of effort to make some of the decorative effects resemble the sort of, I don't remember what they're called, but the kind of warping blocks that take you from one end of the block to the other in Celeste. So you notice how the Starfield background in this level is being used in conjunction with the rectangular patterns of tracks. So that's something that is from Celeste. I'm also restarting from the start, but let's practice this just to kind of get a sense of how it looks again. Let's not. Let's just start over. Hey, Emenu, welcome. Emenu, I saw that you're already on version 39 of the troll level. Hope that's going well. And yeah, there's quite a lot that's going on in this level to not only recreate the music of Celeste, but also the look and the feel. Like, even with the color scheme and the choice of using the Ghost House theme in SMP1 in this first section, and using it with the blue blocks as the default setting. Because, you know, you could just as easily do the same on-off switching tricks by starting with on and switching back to off, depending on how you're setting up the gates, I guess. I mean, when you spawn at checkpoint, you're always going to spawn in the on position, and I guess that's part of why it's been set up like this. But the fact that it actually has such a close resemblance to Celeste is kind of fascinating to see. So yeah, we'll see. I could be on this for a while, just to warn you all about that. And I don't know how long, but it's doable. It's doable with a few timing adjustments and a little bit of practice on the last section, which is always the most difficult thing when something is dependent on clearing without checkpoints, is that you just get much less practice on the later segments. And I do fundamentally like no checkpoint challenges, though. It is something that I always talk about as something that I quite believe in as a hard mode, which is why I had an absolutely fantastic time with Yooka-Laylee and the Impossible Lair, which is always the example I trot out for this. Of course, my personal interest in this is also that my very first Maker 2 level was a gigantic no checkpoint challenge with a clear condition. And it's one that I don't really send around anymore because, like, clearly not everybody is up for that kind of thing. In a menu, you said it's very close to being ready? Okay. Seemed like you took on quite a challenge there, too. Do a complicated troll layout in a 3D world style. I haven't seen it, but from what you were telling me, it was quite a lot you needed to work around and quality check. Nope, missed a short jump there. Just had a momentary brain fart. And yeah, so that's pretty much going to be the plan for this stream, is I'll try to get this done as quickly as I can. I do plan to stick with it unless I'm really bashing my head in it against it for the next hour and a half or something. I'm going to, if Progan is still around, go back to the escape room level and show you how I solved it. Because I did solve it off stream, for those of you who were here for viewer levels the other day and saw me crash against the passcode boss at the very end. I did in fact figure it out. And after that, we'll look at some of the incoming 4YMM makers. A whole bunch of whom this week are totally new to me. I mean, often 4YMM brings in people that have played quite a bit before in the past. Even if it's people that I played in Maker 1 and I'm only catching up to now, which was actually the case with Death Despise right here. And then I played a lot of their Maker 1 stuff and only recently started catching up on their considerable Maker 2 list. But yeah, a lot of new faces to me this week, and so looking forward to seeing what we could show off. And oh, do you, Emmanuel, are you talking about this level, or are you talking about Progan's escape room? Because if you're talking about the escape room, the code's right there. If you're talking about this one, it is... Okay, you got it? Yeah. I mean, this one is obviously the last one in 4YMM Week 6. That's easy enough to find. I can punch that in if anybody is curious. I think a lot of people interested in these levels have given them a crack, even if some people are maybe a week or two behind. So yeah, a menu. I pretty much figured that one out solo with a few exceptions. I did figure something out a cheesy, broken way that had to get patched. And I did require one viewer hint to kind of get me out of some tunnel vision with a clue that I was misreading on Thursday. And I did have one maker hint very early on about executing something that I had basically figured out on principle. But it is possible to figure out solo. It is something that you might want to take notes on it, and you might want to use the capture button on the Switch to take screenshots, so you don't have to constantly stare at things while the timer runs down. So that's my recommendation there. I know it was kind of designed to be a community effort where you have like 100-person stream and a fair bit of collaboration on the clues. But yeah, we managed to get it somehow. Okay, gonna be a little bit behind pace here. Not only is that going to get me into trouble with that pink coin, but there is, of course, going to be another on-off gate a little further down. That is going to cause some trouble. And yeah, again, the issue there is that I do need to take a few short jumps to speed up and get back on pace whenever I spawn in from the pipe rather than CP2, simply because the pipe spawns you one block behind, and the auto-scroll actually makes a huge difference with even that small a change. Going blue blocks first, I think, is partly how Celeste looks, and partly because of the gating of checkpoint 1, where with checkpoint 1, I mean, obviously you could use something like a thought switch for that, but because the auto-scroll gets going right away, respawning from checkpoint with the on state gating you right out of the box seems like it was probably part of the decision. But it did seem to me that starting with blue was definitely at least partly an aesthetic decision, especially given how much the ground and the backgrounds in SMP1 Ghost House here are being made specifically to evoke Celeste Chapter 1. Like, it really does look like Celeste Chapter 1. Like, it really captures the look. And then Part 2 kind of captures Chapter 2. Not so much with ground tiles in the night ground theme, but certainly with the space rectangles, the warp rectangles, as well as the poison mushrooms, which are standing in for the clones, which I keep thinking of as cosmic clones because that's what they were called in Super Mario Galaxy. And Galaxy was the very clear inspiration for a substantial number of mechanics in Celeste. In some ways, Celeste was probably the most significant 2D game to feel like it was really in the aftershock of what Galaxy brought to the table when it comes to platformer design. In some ways, that wasn't really even... Yeah, I mean, I guess since Galaxy 2, we've only had one... No, we've had two mainline 2D Marios, which are just NSMB2 and NSMB-U, and of course neither of those were really informed by Galaxy influence, and so... But yeah, there's stuff all over Celeste that really makes you think, yep, this guy played Galaxy. Yeah, once you get past CP2, then Chapter 2 is definitely what it looks like. And hey, Quick, welcome. Good to see you back. Yeah, just going for true ending. So, a menu... Yeah, there's a bit of both. Like, you'll see... I mean, I am going to walk through it later. Might need to avert spoilers, but there are a few things that are very conventional Mario Maker mechanics puzzles that would be totally at home in any ordinary puzzle level that is, you know, on a much smaller scale. The stuff that is kind of meta level and which gives you all kinds of clues that are not really Mario mechanics related, like that stuff is more pertinent to the final part of the level, but I won't give away too much about that while you're working through it. But yeah, a big challenge of that one, we're talking about Progan's Escape Room for those who are unclear. A big challenge in that level is that it takes a lot of time just to read and process information. Like, I think I spent my entire 500 seconds in the first attempt just looking at stuff and determining what was going to be relevant. And even when I revisited the level on Thursday, when I hadn't quite solved it yet, it took me most of an attempt just to give people a grand tour of the clues I was reading so far. So it's very, very information dense. And in some ways, like, since I haven't really kind of figured out the passcode lock the real way, I mean, I still don't feel like I'm in a position to judge whether it was fairly designed as a puzzle. I don't think I'm in a position to make that determination. It might be that it's a little too obscure for its own good, but in that, like, there are multiple inferences you can make about the shape of the solution, and it's very hard to get feedback from the level sometimes when you're trying something wrong. But we'll talk about that when we get to it. It's challenging enough to play this level without also having my mind on the mental image of another level that I'm talking about at the same time, so let's try to keep things under control here. That jump is always a little bit tricky. Okay, full jumps there. Okay, I'm behind pace. Oh boy, that nearly made it. Nearly made it, although, as you can see, there was an on-off block that was coming right up at the right side of the screen when I took that death, and that was likely to cause me trouble because of how behind pace I was. I can tell at that point that I'm doing that too slowly. Yeah, after that first sequence of poison mushrooms, when you have that sort of wraparound where you go to the lower off switch, at that point, based on how close I am to the scrolling boundary, I can usually tell if the attempt is actually going to go. But we'll just get back there and we'll see if we can make this happen. First part is coming together a little more consistently, at least. This stuff is not hard. Sometimes I miss this coin here because the trajectory is a little bit misleading, since the coin is not really centered. And so if you try to plan your jump arc around slopes and around the background, you're not going to have a good time. Okay, this one's always been fairly simple as long as I can make it across the claws. Sometimes, depending on my entry point to the claws that are next to that swamp, things don't go so well. Nice crisp jumps. Just gotta get back on a tempo. Yeah. I landed too far to the right of that platform, and that's the issue there. You really do need to hug left, and you really do need to have a quick interval between the landing on that falling platform and hitting the switch. That was something that, even when I was doing this with checkpoints, was a point that I struggled with in terms of not being outpaced by the falling platform. Okay, there we go. Fairly tidy. And yeah, I did make a 4YMM level quick. I will pull up the code in just a moment, if you don't have it. The other thing about the 4YMM level is that when it was my week, when it was week 5, I also streamed a backstage tour of the level for those who want to see how it looks in the editor mode. We basically pulled it up and talked about it in the editor for about an hour. And I have the link to that as well. Let me just wait until this attempt is over, because I'm kind of in the flow right now. And I'll pull up the code for those interested. Okay, feel like that's behind pace a little bit. Full jump. It's not going to do the trick here. Yeah. So let me grab that. Nope, sorry. 4YMM. Let's learn how to type. Okay, good. Sound is still working, which is important for music level. Oh yes, and here is the link to mine. So yeah, if you haven't played that already, do have fun. It was not the easiest thing to put together, but I'm glad that it seems to have met with a fairly warm response from the players. I mean, it's one that is definitely not for everybody, I do have to warn you about that, but that's because people come in with so many different wide-ranging expectations when it comes to pacing and difficulty. Oops. Well, you know, quick, if the quality of the level is there, it's there, right? So, I mean, you know, people raise that sometimes with, or why? I mean, there are two frequent things that they say that have become a bit cliche, which is, first of all, isn't this game like closer to 5 years old? And the answer is yes. And the second thing is, you know, you see people saying, oh, why can't everybody just celebrate 4 years of Mario Maker? Well, you can. Of course you can. But the idea behind having something that is officially on brand for 4YMM is that, you know, like everybody who was in that did try to, did have to make some compromises to make the levels fit in as part of a curated series and a group. So everybody did have to, you know, dial some things back, respond to playtesting, make some compromises, just to make sure we had the right kind of difficulty tuning, as well as the right kind of variety to be a very coherent package. And so, I mean, I have no problem with people, you know, doing anniversary levels and branding anniversary levels. I don't think anybody has a problem with that. But it's the only thing really separating the on-brand thing is that we made a lot of accommodations as to makers to make that happen, and also the efforts by some of the people volunteering their time on the production side, particularly the trailer crew, Lecter and Duffy, and the rest running the website. Like, they have been absolutely fantastic. I don't know if you folks have been following the 4YMM trailers that are on the official website and showing off the levels week to week, but the trailers have been knocking it out of the park. Like, just way above everybody's expectations, I think. Okay. Still don't quite have the timing there. When I was spawning from checkpoint, I'll actually show this off once. I'll spawn from checkpoint. When I was spawning from checkpoint, I was treating it like a rhythm game and trying to tap on the beat. And I found that the method actually worked surprisingly well, that you'd have like 3 jumps on the first 3 beats of the bar there. And it would work actually with some surprising consistency, with the exception of collisions like the one I just showed off. And that was partly informed by having played some other levels by Death to Spies that were much more explicitly rhythm-based. Problem with that is that method does not work when you are spawning from pipe, rather than from checkpoint, because the synchronization is something you have to catch up to. But yeah, quick, in terms of selection for 4IMM, it didn't happen the same way with everybody. Some people were basically showing prototypes to Kavik, who runs the project, as far back as November and December. That's what I did. I showed off a concept that was actually something that bore zero resemblance to the final thing. Some people were just trusted makers coming back from Maker 1 who were in the previous years. And some people were picked up quite late in that they were just noticed as being really interesting on viewer level submissions, for instance. And they were just kind of in the right place and the right time with a level that really kind of showed off the right kind of quality that was a good fit for some things that were underrepresented. Some of the puzzles in particular, like some of the puzzle makers came in a little bit later, which is surprising given how long the puzzles can take to make and playtest. And yeah, it's been a lot of fun. Been a lot of stress for people as well, I think, because, you know, like everything else that you, when you take something supposedly fun like Mario Maker and you start slapping project deadlines on it and start making it something scheduled, it's easy to have that turn anything into something stressful and much less fun. And that's the thing that, you know, people should know about if there is something like a 5YMM, which is uncertain at this point, just given how much work goes into it. If there is a 5YMM next year, and I'm not in charge of that, I don't make those decisions, but it's not just about being a really polished maker. Like, that's not the only thing that's involved. Like, you really do have to be open-minded about some things that come up in playtesting that you might disagree with and not want to do if you were just the one running the whole show yourself. Like, there is a kind of project aesthetic that makes it distinct from a lot of other community projects, like things that are shell-based or troll-based or whatever, you know, that each of these sub-communities within Mario Maker does have a certain set of organizing principles. And so not every kind of maker is going to be a fit for it. There are very good makers that work in the styles or difficulties that are not a great fit for it, but I think they assembled a really good crew this time. And I feel like just by playing a lot of older levels by other makers of 4YMM on the weekends, that I've been learning a lot about this game. Because the level diversity is still pretty immense. Oh, it is definitely about tolerating Kavik. Not everybody will do that. Some people definitely dropped or didn't enter because, you know, like, when it comes to project management and quality checks and all that stuff, there is going to be conflict. There is going to be conflict when you have something that is as personal and often leisurely as Mario Maker, where everybody I think, who is doing Mario making this seriously does have strong opinions about what they want to see. And yeah, sometimes the strength of those opinions is going to create some situations where you don't want to compromise your vision for the level, right? So... no, missed. I'm way behind. Way behind, you see? I can always tell when I get to that blue boundary right there whether I'm on pace. I was already way behind even before I flubbed that jump near the end. Yeah, you playtest for somebody who dropped out of 4YMM? Yeah. I think I know who, actually, because I also looked at an early version for them. I mean, we could be talking about multiple people, but I think I know who. But, never mind all that. I mean, it's all about the product that comes at the end, right? The product and the mental health of the people who make it out alive. Okay. Like I said, could be on this a while. Okay, this is one of the better attempts we've seen so far. Yeah, I think I actually had to get in ahead of Mushroom 1 for that one. Like, if I'm doing well in terms of pacing, I cannot wait for the first mushroom to pass me by in that set. I still don't have a good method for that one yet when it comes to restarting without checkpoint. I've passed it once, I think. And it was already one of the trickiest spots, even with the standard checkpoint timing. Okay. Now here we go. Really tempting to wait for the mush? Yeah. And the auto-scroll just says no to that. And yeah, just to catch up, you do need to make short jumps everywhere. That was too slow. Because the amount of time you spend in the air can really throw you off. And that's the thing, is that like jump height when you make controlled jumps is something that I find anyway quite difficult to get 100% consistent. You know, like short hops and full jumps, very easy to do consistently. Controlled jumps are always going to add a ton of variance. And I feel like that's one of those points of consistency that does really separate the very best players. Like, the very best players, of course, like, the thing that sticks out about them is their consistency and their ability to quickly get back to hard segments so they can get practice in as soon as they can. And a lot of that is because of very subtle things that are going on in how consistent their control habits are. In that they can have a controlled jump that's very precisely calibrated and actually manage to nail it that way almost all of the time, which I find astonishing. And it's something that when you watch it on video, you don't really pick it up. When you see it happen in a level that you know very well, such as something that you made yourself, you can really tell what's going on. Like, when I saw my 4YMM level being played by some of the really big shot streamers like Boo and Panga and so on, the remarkable thing that you notice about it that you wouldn't notice if you're just watching them play somebody else's level, is like they gain so much time without even looking like they're trying that you know, they're just kind of playing casually, and it looks like they're just playing Mario like anybody else, and you can't really notice the difference until you see just how far ahead of the clock they are and how quickly things get done. In that they're taking all these like tight corners and tight jumps everywhere without making them look like they're tight corners. And yeah, that's the thing that really separates the cream of the crop, is that they just get much more bang for their buck when it comes to time spent practicing. And, you know, it's like that with a lot of highly developed skill sets. If you look at people who are musicians for symphony orchestras, for instance, the thing that really separates musicians in symphony orchestras is how quickly they can sight read stuff. Well, one of the many things. I mean, obviously there are many things that separate them. But definitely, like, a core part of their skill set is that a really good professional orchestra can just kind of learn something in a week. Or in, you know, very few rehearsals. Like, very few rehearsals when they're still waiting for the feature soloist to come to town or something. But that's basically how film recording orchestras work as well. Like, whenever the London Philharmonic is called into Abbey Road to work on something by John Williams, for instance, they are pretty much professionally very prepared as a rehearsal orchestra that just nails a lot of things quickly. Like, the pace at which people learn stuff at that level is really quite incredible. I mean, I'm not saying that Mario is the same kind of skill set as playing in a professional symphony orchestra, but I think the sort of way in which expertise is characterized by familiarity with learning things quickly is something that is a pretty appropriate analogy. Oh. Hey, awesome lap. So yeah, back to grinding this out. Awesome Lab, I don't know if you were here the other day for the escape room. That was by D.I. Progan. We did in fact solve it, so I will hopefully wrap this up quickly and then we'll look at that one. And so I can show it off on stream, because I solved it, like I didn't brute force it, but I solved it in a way that was clearly not quite intended as the, you know, designer way to read the solution. But yeah, quick, I feel like it is just something that's waiting for one or two good attempts. And that's true of most things that are, you know, no checkpoint challenges, which the mentality behind them is something I'm quite familiar with. Like, I really enjoyed 200% in Tropical Freeze, which is all about playing every level in the game without checkpoints, and which is fantastic, because as with a level like this one, you can really see in Tropical Freeze just how well developed each level is in terms of building up its ideas and kind of arranging them like a bit of a story in every level, and even across the scale of some of the entire worlds. It's something that you kind of notice when you first play the game, but see very, very vividly when you play the whole thing without checkpoints. And I really do believe that it's the way to play the game. Like, I've done 200% in Tropical Freeze multiple times at this point because I just have so much fun doing it. Next thing to solve is why did it say 7 at the people in section? I thought it's because it matched up with the 7 dice that is in the top right corner of the intro room. Because it's the 7 dice that gives you the directional arrows, right? Like, that's where the directional arrows are placed. But maybe I completely misread that. But that's the thing, is that, like, if I have one reservation about that level, which again I'll talk about a bit further when I get a chance to show it off in video, it's that a lot of the numerical clues just seem to have multiple possible solutions, and that it's very difficult to verify that you're on the right track. Like, it's very difficult to falsify a hypothesis that is not correct. And that's something that I think is an aspect of puzzle design that, like, it's easy to get across with things that are actual Mario puzzle mechanics, because things work or they don't, right? They produce a reaction or they don't. But when it comes to sort of more mentally based things like clue reading, like a feedback mechanism is something that requires a lot of thought and design, I think. No death run in Tropical Freeze. Wow, impressive. But yeah, Tropical Freeze is very, very fair. There's nothing in it that feels blind, I think. Bopopolis the first time, like 2-K. The first time you do need to be very sharp about reading the patterns, but the thing about that level is that I took, I think, 4 years off of it. I cleared it back in 2014, I cleared it again in 2018, and the incredible thing was that my muscle memory for that level actually stayed. Like, I returned to it in 2018 and got it on a second attempt after 4 years off, which tells you how good the level design is, because, you know, if you just kind of understand how to do the bounce and you understand how your momentum works, it is actually very readable, almost blind. And yeah, that sense of constant motion and being in the air is probably the closest thing to what we would kind of call the hard traditional or Kaizo light or whatever in this game. Like the more speedrunny stuff where it's just constant forward motion with no landing zone. I mean, that's basically Bopopolis for you. But yeah, Tropical Freeze I think is a remarkable game. And it's one that has improved with age. Like, it's one where the more I play it, and the more I revisit it, for the hard content in particular, like, the more you get out of the game. And I haven't really even done the speed medals yet, and I do know that, like, for speedrunners, it's also a totally different experience because of the way that the enemy layouts are timed to permit speedrunning. And I think that was true for Returns as well, although Returns is a game that I don't really know as well. And I really hope Returns gets a definitive HD port eventually that has, you know, like a console presentation, but also some of the extra content from 3DS, which I never played, and also standard controls, which was a sore point for a lot of people when it first came out on the Wii. But yeah, I'm not really somebody who's a natural speedrunner. Like, it's not really my style as a platform player. But I may do Tropical Freeze time trials on stream at some point. I don't know when I'll do it, but it's something I kind of have in mind as something I would like to do eventually. So, we'll see. I feel like it would be very satisfying to learn properly. that's kind of an interesting point about the shortcuts relative to classic DKC. Yeah, because now that I think about classic DKC, it did have much more sort of Mario-style pipe shortcuts, if you know what I mean, in terms of the amount of the level that you are allowed to skip. And, yeah, I'm just thinking of that level in DKC 1 with the... It was in, that level with the on-off switches that turn out the lights, right? Where I think you can just skip past the halfway point right away. There's stuff like that all over the place. Yeah, walk back to the start. That's right, that's right. It's been a long time since I've looked at it. I do know that DKC 1 is on the Switch Online service now. I haven't looked at it yet because I actually have been mainly playing Yoshi's Island on the side. Like, I've just been poking around with it off stream again. For the first time in a very long time. So yeah. But yeah, retro era DKC I've really, really enjoyed. There's only one thing about Tropical Freeze that I think has always felt a little bit off, and it's the hitboxes on the bosses. That's literally the only thing. They have the same kind of weird collisions and corners that some of the 3D World sprites have in Maker 2. But other than that, like, that's the only thing that I can think of that is a bit of an annoyance. And yeah, there we go. Yeah, Tropical Freeze is just one of those games where I always wind up talking about it so much when I talk about level design that, you know, it always gives me an itch to just replay it all over again. Yeah, I guess I never really think too hard about cutscenes and credit endings. With games like that, I don't really feel like I'm finished until I've seen all the levels anyway, and so I don't tend to think too hard about credits placement. But yeah, quick, like, I don't know if you've played the 2D Yooka-Laylee, like Yooka-Laylee and the Impossible Lair. But as a DKC enthusiast, I think you'd get quite a lot out of it. And the final level in that game is immense. It's actually one of the first things I ever streamed on this stream. I mean, I've been doing Mario Maker since I started up earlier in the year, but I basically had a point to make about, you know, the design of a no checkpoint challenge in Yooka-Laylee, and basically had a session where I just learned the level in its pre-patch form, top to bottom. Yeah, that attempt I knew was not going to go. And it's because even on the first set of poison mushrooms, I knew I was behind pace. Like, it was not going to happen. But yeah, Pergun, I'm also somebody who was mainly PC sort of during the N64 and PlayStation era. I did not really like the console 3D transition at the time, and so I just wound up playing RTS and 4X and all that. City Sims. Really just SimCity. But, yeah, I mean, I know you talked about being from a Warcraft 3 background as well, which is sort of interesting. They recently, in StarCraft 2, had a massive editor update that finally cleaned up a lot of the UI to be much closer to Warcraft 3 in terms of ease of use and power. I mean, it always had the power, but it's more that you had to hack together a lot of solutions yourself to things that you could do out of the box in Warcraft 3, such as the inventory management, the levels, etc. And it was just way too inconvenient for people getting into SC2 Galaxy Editor. But they recently did a massive update where they added like water levels and 15 slope levels and, you know, just a ton of stuff. I haven't really played around with it yet because I've just been out of any kind of Blizzard RTS modding for way too long. But I was kind of surprised that after all this time, given that, you know, the customs community had a really rough launch and had a rough time with SE2, that they so belatedly decided to go back and fix it and put so many resources towards fixing it. I mean, it's not really going to revive that community, I don't think, but it's sort of nice that they really committed to getting that job done. But yeah, I was always a big RTS person, and 4X as well. I mean, I think depending on the generation that you came in with, that there's probably a not insignificant overlap between people who do Mario Maker and people who kind of worked with a lot of RTS tools back in the day. I mean, there's much more overlap with the Minecraft generation. Like, you hear so much about Minecraft players who come into this game, but I feel like it's a very natural fit for people who came in from an RTS side. But yeah, I did not really handle the N64 PS1 transition that gracefully. I mean, I outright skipped the consoles at the time. I would occasionally catch up on a few big games through rental, but you know, I generally wasn't really interested in where consoles went at that point. Age of Empires has made a pretty decent comeback recently, I think, in terms of having received good HD definitive editions. Like, I know that some people have really gotten back into it. I personally spent much less time on Age of Empires than in the Star Wars spin-off of it, which was Galactic Battlegrounds, and which was just overtly Star Wars Age of Empires. Like, it's not even remotely hiding that. And back then, of course, it just kind of seemed like a second-tier RTS game, right? But nowadays, I actually really miss having Star Wars RTS in some form. And that, you know, Star Wars, you just have to wait for them to come up with some kind of very mainstream action game once every 5 years or so. But very much towards the cinematic crowd that really wants to be immersed in their Star Wars, right? But the thing is, Star Wars RTS, like Empire at War, Galactic Battlegrounds, that kind of thing, like, that was always interesting in a way that was underrated in its own time, I think, simply because they tended to come along when RTS was at its healthiest and when the competition was therefore stiffest. And now, you know, I just really wish that, I mean, with EA kind of squatting on the Star Wars license, nothing ever really happens with that, but definitely miss the days when Star Wars actually produce some offbeat and very PC-oriented stuff like that. I haven't played Fallen Order. I did hear some good things about it. I generally like the sort of... I mean, I hesitate to call things a Metroidvania for a number of reasons, but I do like that form of progression. And I do think that in some ways we see too little of it in 3D, although I haven't really played the Souls series either, and I know that Dark Souls people really kind of swear by that as well in terms of 3D exploration. But yeah, I did hear that Fallen Order, at least, kind of filled in the single-player portfolio again. You know, in terms of having a good reason to swat a lightsaber around. And yeah, I mean, I think everybody... You were saying about not caring about Star Wars anymore. I think everybody who has ever sort of had some kind of attachment to Star Wars just has very vividly strong opinions about it. It seems impossible for people to like Star Wars and not take it too seriously, and, you know, I am definitely complicit in that myself. But I will say, I was always very fond of the prequels, and I was fond of them before it was cool to say so. But I think I was coming into them with a slightly different film background than a lot of people who are just kind of approaching Star Wars as Star Wars and as a mass media property. Like, George Lucas, you know, is actually a really fascinating filmmaker when you kind of approach him from a film historian perspective, like when you set aside all the mass market franchise stuff and you really kind of look at where he's coming from as an artist and how he got to Star Wars. Like, you know, the kind of artistic interests that were driving him as a filmmaker back in the 1960s before he was getting started. Very interesting story behind all that. And a lot of it is that it was overtly a kind of nostalgic tribute to a lot of classic cinema and a lot of the classic serials. And it's the same with Indiana Jones as well, is that, like, you know, even... Like, I think the most important thing I ever observed about George Lucas is that even back in the 1970s, audiences already understood that he was a retro filmmaker. That he was explicitly going for a retro aesthetic. And that he was a specialist in that. Like, I mean, American Graffiti was kind of retro to the 1960s. THX 113, it was kind of its own thing. But, was very much in keeping with a strain of science fiction that I think is very much in the wake of what Kubrick and others were doing around the same time. I mean, here's the difference, right? Is that, like, George Lucas was studying Akira Kurosawa, and he was studying, like, the abstract short films of Arthur Lipsett, which are, like, really abstract stuff, in that they're, you know, completely plotless montage cinema. And that was the kind of thing he was into. And he was doing Star Wars as a kind of retro style piece. Newer blockbuster filmmakers aren't studying that stuff so much, I think. Newer blockbuster filmmakers are studying George Lucas and Steven Spielberg. Like, they're not really going back to source. And there's something like that that's a generational transition with every generation of filmmakers. Like, you can really tell, for instance, if you go back to Alfred Hitchcock, that he was somebody who cut his teeth doing silent cinema in the 1920s. Like, there's a lot of stuff in Hitchcock where you look at it in, you know, the 1960s or 70s and you're thinking, okay, this looks completely unlike what other filmmakers are doing at the same time, and it's because he's using silent era technique. I've only seen a little bit of The Mandalorian. I have not really caught up on it because I'm not a Disney Plus subscriber currently. Like, I basically saw a bit of it with a friend, and I do want to catch up on more of it. I do think that there's some interesting stuff going on with how it is trying to, you know, not just take Star Wars as a source, but think about things like the Western genre, for instance, and kind of think about approaching Star Wars not by mimicking Star Wars, but mimicking the stuff that Star Wars was based on, if you know what I mean. But yeah, to get back to what Pergan was saying about, yeah, RTS. Yeah, I think it's very true that Blizzard has burned a lot of bridges. I mean, I was about the biggest Blizzard diehard that you can... Well, not the biggest, because with Blizzard there's always something bigger. Like, there's always somebody who's much more hardcore than you. But, like, Blizzard was kind of my main thing outside of Nintendo for 20 years or so, and for a number of reasons they don't get my money anymore. I'm not going to go into it, but for a number of reasons they don't get my money anymore. I do still play and watch StarCraft 2 because I really love SC2 and I think it's immense. But, you know, they have, I think, done quite a lot to alienate most of the loyalists at this point. And, like, there will always be people who are kind of susceptible to, like, Blizzard drawing them back in with nostalgia, like all the people who came back in with Classic WoW last year. But, yeah, I think in terms of impact, that there was, you know, really that lively competition between different RTS styles back in the 90s that, as you said, Blizzard kind of clearly won. And it created, I think, the conditions for what we later saw going into circa 2010 or so, like basically when SC2 came out, and SC2 was literally the only game in town, and that was the successor to both the Warcraft 3 and Brood War communities, while the other lineages of RTS, like the different styles of RTS, didn't have much to look forward to. I never caught up on Company of Heroes, and I know that Company of Heroes was kind of a big thing, or as a kind of an alternative style of RTS for a while. But then by that point, I think, like, you know, a lot of the game theory around how to think about, like, macro and micro in an RTS, and thinking about 1v1 design and so on, like, a lot of that had collapsed around the Blizzard model. And I think the sort of faction asymmetry and really strong sense of faction identity was a bigger part of that story than people necessarily realized. Too slow. Furthest I've made it in this session, but too slow. I'll have no trouble skipping Diablo. I am honestly not really that into Diablo. Like, I played a fair bit of Diablo 3. I like what they have been talking about with the open world structure of Diablo 4, but I've never been as into Diablo as the other Blizzard stuff, and I think it's because it's much more stats and gear oriented. And I think I just find that much less rewarding, because there are fewer problems to kind of approach as problems to solve, you know? Like, there are a lot of things that you just kind of beat through grind, or beat through, you know, studying builds in a metagame, and I've never really found that too satisfying. So it's kind of funny that Diablo's always been the biggest mainstream thing from Blizzard, because I've always found it to be probably their least interesting. So I think it will be totally painless for me to skip Diablo 4. Hey, 1K Man. 1K Man is going alright. I mean, I've been on this for about an hour because we're still trying to do true ending on this level. And I would like to get it done this session. And yeah, as you can see, as far as two-state areas go, this is a two-state level. A two-state level is, which is mainly using that for controlling the platforming as well as the layering of the music track. But yeah. Hey, Safety Man. Welcome back. So yeah, we'll see. If I'm not making too much headway from this, I may take a break from it, and so I can show off what we did with the escape room solution. And then we'll come back to this at some point during this session. I don't want to drop it, but it's quite possible this will just spill over week to week before I get it. Because I do think this is by far the hardest cake. It's already the one I've spent the longest time on. And it's the only one, as I've said before, that I've been unable to get. I feel like it is within my reach, it's just that there are a lot of adjustments I need to make that I haven't had the opportunity to practice. But yeah, Safety of Men, I did solve the passcode lock on the escape room, and I did it off stream. So I did get first clear on it, but I do want to show that on stream. So Rogan can see how I broke his level. They're good dogs. Diablo is actually by far Blizzard's biggest hit. If you look at Diablo 3, it's sold like 20 to 30 million or something. It's one of the best-selling games of all time. Part of that is because of console ports, but, you know, even compared to Overwatch, I think Diablo is much bigger. And Overwatch was very much designed for a console. No, Diablo is by far their biggest IP. Which has always struck me as a little unexpected, because to me, having grown up with the RTSs, Blizzard was always first and foremost an RTS studio. But of course, you know, I came in before World of Warcraft kind of totally made the brand explode. But yeah, I think World of Warcraft, you look at the lifetime unique subscribers, probably a crazy, crazy number, but I think in terms of concurrency, it's only ever gone as high as, like, 12 million concurrent players, I want to say. Is Overwatch at 50 mil? Really? Oh, wow. Okay, maybe Overwatch is #1 now, then. Like, if you're talking about best-selling titles rather than cumulative series sales. So, okay, no, maybe Diablo is behind Overwatch now. I didn't know Overwatch was at 50 mil. I knew it was huge, but I clearly underestimated how huge, and but yeah, I'm a little detached from all that simply because I'm really not an FPS player at all. So I never really paid that much attention to Overwatch. So I don't know how big stuff like Overwatch League is, for instance, in terms of promoting the brand. I know it's fairly big because it's one of the things where, you know, you actually hear civilians talking about it, so to speak. Too slow. Yeah, I was in the Hearthstone alpha when the alpha went public, so I was playing it from a very early stage. As with things like Magic the Gathering, I find it completely impossible to keep up with the metagame now, because it's just grown too much, and the business model just relies on you staying in and staying engaged. And my issue with Hearthstone was that Arena is fantastic. Like, I think it's just an excellent strategy game, and I think it's really the purest form of the game. But with Hearthstone, I find that it's a much better strategy game than it is a collection game. Like, I've never liked the collection and deck building aspect of it, which always seemed to collapse around a fairly limited number of meta builds, you know, that are kind of flavor of the month at any given time. And maybe that's not true once you get into Legend. I never got into Legend, but you know, maybe it's more interesting than that at the top level. But I always found that the constructed mode was much too meta-oriented for my taste, and that's something that is kind of natural, I think, when it comes to collectible card games. Magic the Gathering certainly had the same issue, and was also extremely expensive. But yeah, I really enjoyed Arena. If I were good enough to play Arena indefinitely, I would have done so, and I, in fact, did do that until I just eventually ran out of gold from a few bad runs. But yeah, I basically like played Arena to death, eventually got bored of Constructed, and just decided not to keep up, completely independent of the totally separate reasons why Blizzard no longer gets my money. So and yeah, I really do appreciate the design of Hearthstone very much. It's just more that, like, as a player, I was no longer in a position to enjoy it once I was no longer doing Endless Arena. And I was kind of in the black with Endless Arena for a while. But eventually, like, even there, too, there was a meta that you have to keep up with. Okay, I slowed down a bit, and that's going to be bad. Yeah, this is going to be bad. Not going to make it. Not going to make it. Not going to make it. Okay. I poked around a little bit with Hearthstone once they separated Classic and Wild. Or, not Classic and Wild. You know what I mean. Wild and the other kind. Standard and Wild. Because most of my collection was built early in the game, in the first year to year and a half or so, and so a lot of my stuff got disqualified into Wild anyway. You know, most of the legendaries and other things that I had. Aura is about to have a mental breakdown. Quick, what is he playing? Aura does viewer levels in this block, right? Like on weekends? Somebody sent him some kind of like 2-hour dodge to Saw Blades thing, or a puzzle, or something else. So. Yeah, Progan, I think Magic was always one of those games where, like, the concepts had a lot of fussiness to it that was waiting for digitization. In the same way that tabletop games were always ripe for things like, you know, Western CRPGs to show up and just do most of the stat management and character sheet tracking and dice rolling and such for you. Like, they're conceptually great in a way that has a lot of sort of tactile fussiness to them that was waiting for a digital conversion. And I feel like, I mean, I haven't played, you know, the digital MTG Arena or anything like that has been introduced, but the last time I checked in on the state of online Magic, which was in the years before Hearthstone, it was pretty dire. Like, they really didn't have a vision for what they wanted to do with taking the product to people who could play, you know, in an online setting. And partly it's just their business model, I think, that their business model is just so dependent on selling more booster packs. Yeah, I used to watch Aura quite a ton as well. Before I started streaming, I mean, he was usually the most convenient person to watch for the hours I was keeping. And so he was probably the person I watched the most back in the final months of Maker 1. He actually ran into one of my Maker 2 levels in Endless and booed it. Which, you know, it happens. And I think the chat actually kind of disagreed with him on that score, because he booed a level before he finished it, and then on the next attempt he finished it. But, that was a while back, and he liked the 4YMM level for me quite a bit. Actually, Aura is the only one I've seen on stream one-shot my 4YMM level with no practice. Like, he just stepped into it and did it and liked it and stepped out, which he was the only person to do. No, actually, I could tell that the level that he drew in Endless was not going to be his style, because it's the one that is very, very long with no checkpoint, and even though he did well on it, that was never going to be his kind of thing. I was kind of surprised that the 4YMM level was, in fact, for his kind of thing. You saw a meme level of yours played in Versus, okay. Well, I mean, you're going to see yourself played in Versus, might as well be that one. I gotta say, I mean, I've barely played Versus at all because my networking has never seemed to handle it gracefully. Like, I've never had a reasonable match of Versus in this game, and so I just gave up on it when I was still in D-grade connection hell. Speaking of which, I don't know how people have been doing with the Ninja speedruns this week. The new 3D World Pick a Power-Up Ninja level that has been released. This is the first one in a long time that I've truly struggled on. Usually, every time the Ninja speedruns come up, like, I always try to route them myself before I watch anybody else do it. And when I route them myself, I can usually get into enough of a bracket to get the gold stars. Like, I usually wind up top 2 to 5% or so. This week's Ninja level, I was not even close. Like, I would be lucky to get silver this week, and I just don't have an approach to it at all. Although, I know that a big part of it is going to involve, like, really clean boomerang play. But this is the only Ninja level I've seen where I've... Oh, how did I not enter the door? Okay. Yeah, that I've really not been able to crack. Like, I'm missing some kind of massive breakthrough with it. But yeah, I think I'm not even in top 10% right now, and like, I just couldn't see what to do with it. Whereas usually I find it very satisfying to just plot my own route and kind of nail that nice and early, and then I can look at some streamers afterwards and see how close I got to what they were doing. because I'm not somebody who's a natural speedrunner. Like, I don't find the technical aspects of optimizing a clear time to be very interesting. But I do find the routing aspects of figuring out a plan for a level to be very interesting. And so, like, I usually do the Ninja speedruns for as long as it takes for me to, like, make headway through tactical decisions. And then once it comes down to, you know, optimizing specific jumps and such, then I fail out. But yeah, anybody who's been watching me for any span of time knows that I'm not a precision player. Okay, we've gotten here ahead of schedule this time. This is looking good. This is looking good. Gotta nail the snake block segment at the very end. Okay, best attempt yet. Best attempt yet. Took me an hour to get here, but we actually had a very clean run that time. Very clean run. Very clean run all the way up to choking in the last bit there. The last bit, I was thinking too far ahead. I was thinking, okay, don't choke at a snake block, don't choke at a snake block, and we didn't make it to the snake block. But yeah, that's the kind of run that suddenly makes this look realistic, and perhaps even imminent. I have been kind of doing the early segments basically on autopilot for the last little while. Whoops. I actually went too fast there that time. If you go too fast there, the scroll boundary gets you into trouble when it comes to getting ahead of the flop. But yeah, the claws, once I get into claws, I have no choice. I only have a very specific pattern I can use to get through them. Sorry, I'm a little behind on chat because I was trying to process that nearly successful attempt just now. But yeah, with the Ninja run, like there was some stuff I tried with the boomerang where boomerang was clearly fastest in certain segments. Like with the back and forth on-off switches, and even with the pokey stack. Like, I think the pokey stack is a boomerang thing because the boomerang hits the on-off switch for you before you get into the pipe. If I remember the level correctly from playing it several days ago. But it seems like my time is bad enough, like it's still in the high 40s, and my time is bad enough that it seems like there's still stuff I can do that is strategy-based to improve it by like a full 10 seconds or so before I even think about sort of jump level optimization. Oh. Bad landing on the platform once again. One K-Man, should you have this level be accurate to game and make it have no checkpoints? Sorry, 1K-Man, remind me what your thing was based on? Yeah, I don't know how flexible the ninjas are going to be when it comes to hitting 20 stamps for the costumes. Like, I don't know if they're going to support it beyond 20 levels. That's a good point. Oh, Resident Evil Outbreak, okay. I feel like you can always have an optional no checkpoint route, as you can see with this level that we're playing right now. I mean, I tend to have different opinions on checkpoints than a lot of people, in that I really do enjoy no checkpoint challenges as long as they are built to be kind of blind friendly and fair in a way that allows you to do everything consistently once you've mastered a method for it. Like, that's the kind of deal that you make, right, with a level like this, is that, you know, I'm willing to do it from the start every time, assuming that once I find a good approach, it actually sticks, and isn't something that is RNG dependent. Yeah, exactly. If something is just kind of medium difficulty the whole way through, I think that's perfectly fine. I mean, some people are going to hate it, but I find that a lot of players in the current meta, as it were, for Mario Maker tend to be much more checkpoint-minded than I tend to be. I mean, you know, a well-placed checkpoint is always nice when it comes to the level, but like a checkpoint isn't there as a check against length necessarily, right? Like a checkpoint is there as a check against things that are unreliable or inconsistent, or which would otherwise feel like they were very practice dependent. But yeah. Okay, obviously we had a very close attempt just now, and that encourages me to stick with this a bit further. At some point I should actually clean up Golden Strawberries and Celeste. I don't know if I like Celeste enough to do that. I mean, I enjoy a lot about the game, but I think, you know, doing Red Strawberries on A side is pretty much where Celeste already peaked. But again, that's because I'm not really a precision-oriented player, and like there's been kind of a fast auto-scroll music level pretty much every week in 4YMM, and obviously there's a big community around that, mostly circling around Composer, who was present in week 5. And I find that of the different styles that are represented in 4YMM, it's the style that is probably least fitting for me. In that, you know, if we were not taking a look at the specific levels and we were just taking a look at the genre, usually this would not really be my favorite genre. I would much rather play a lot of other platforming styles. This one I think is very well executed. But I think it speaks to something that it's a very well executed level in a style that is not totally for me. And that's basically what my attitude to Celeste is as well. Is that I think it's almost certainly the best in class at being its specific kind of platformer. It's just that it's not my favorite kind of platformer. Like, it's the best example of what it is doing. That's... We'll see anyway. At some point I may do something like A-side Golden Strawberries just to relearn some of that game, but I also have a lot of other stuff I could be playing and not much time. So. But of course Celeste is a reasonably quick game. Yeah, unfortunately, 1K, I don't really know Resident Evil that well, so I can't really give you any advice about how to render Outbreak faithfully. Okay. Try to build up some pace with some short jumps. Yeah, getting short jumps in to get ahead of the auto-scroll is pretty much the entire method here. Okay, that was going to be a problem. I knew I was behind pace a little pretty much as soon as I made that jump after the off switch. Yeah, Outbreak did seem lesser known. I mean, I know it's not one of the mainline numbered ones, or even one of the ones like what is it, Revelations 1 and 2, or the series within a series. Oops. Just slow down on that jump there. That was a mess. Okay, here we are. Yeah, yeah, the last section, it seems like, you know, the first few parts of it, when I do it without CP, like, it takes about a screen's worth of playing to feel like I've caught up to the pace of how I'm doing when I spawn at the CP. Like, there's enough of a timing difference that the catch-up time involved is considerable. And I've been starting to do it, like, I've been starting to regain some pace. It's more that when you respawn from checkpoint, you can find a 100% consistent timing for how you are going to play around the poison mushrooms. And of course, the whole thing is auto-scroll, so the spawn timings are going to be consistent depending on when they come in on screen. The thing that is inconsistent right now is just Mario's position going in, and so depending on how I do the kind of catch-up at CP2 and get back on pace in the first 2 screens or so, like, there's always going to be a tiny bit of random variance with how I'm doing it. And that's going to throw off my poison mushroom timing shortly after that. And that's the issue I'm running into right now, is that, like, I have to improvise my way around the poison mushrooms pretty much every time because I cannot trust that my position relative to the pattern is going to be the same. I don't know what I can do, really, to make that much more consistent than how I'm doing it currently, so yeah. Short jumps are critical. This platform is really critical. Like, really hugging the left on that jump there. Whoops, slowed down too much. No, I'm dead. Okay. Might be on this one a while, but unfinished business is unfinished business. Okay. But yeah, I'm really quite fond of the Celeste soundtrack. And if you listen to the main theme here, that's, you know, that you have the motif in major that goes to minor, that kind of has this sort of unsettling reflection of the first phase. First phrase, rather. It's actually very true to the concept of the game on the whole. I think this is one of the better cases of a bit of game music that really fits how the game itself is structured and what it's about. Like, much more so than most game scores that I can think of. This one is one that is, like, thematically on point. I'm way behind pace. Not gonna make it. Okay, start over. Okay. Not too many restarts in the first segment, at least. When I start slipping a lot on this early stuff, that's when I know it'll be time to take a break from progressing on this. I mean, at this point, I have spent more time on this than I tend to spend on most of the legendary no checkpoint challenges in officially designed games. But, I don't know how it compares to the Celeste Golden Strawberries in that respect. Because I guess the standard A-side stuff in Celeste, you know, when you're not going for all the red strawberries, it's not actually too bad. But it's hard to tell because, you know, when you play Celeste, you get into the habit of just bashing your head in until something gives you a good attempt, since you're just respawning every screen anyway. Which is kind of the total opposite philosophy towards checkpoints from what I usually like in games like DKC. Okay, just gotta work at it. But yeah, depending on how close we get, I might actually have to take a breather from this one and come back to fight another day, although this attempt is going better than most. Well, that was a choke. I have never been hit at that spot before. But there is a first time for everything. I was pretty much completely confident in that spot, but I haven't seen it in a while, right? And so, when you haven't seen something like that in a while, and it's literally the last jump that you need to make, you do start to second guess yourself. At least I do. Why does this song sound like you have heard it before? I mean, have you played Celeste? Or have you watched other people play Celeste? I don't remember who the composer for Celeste is, actually, now that I think about it. I don't believe it was a self-composed game in the way that some other indie games like it were. But then I don't remember who actually did the music for it. Oh, you mean it sounds like a different song? Yeah, maybe. I'd have to think about that further. Okay. Kind of saw that coming. I was doing better than usual up until that segment. But we're getting closer. I mean, we've gotten one jump away from the objective. It's clearly doable. It's clearly doable. It's just a matter of seeing... Ah, Lena Rain, thank you for looking that up, Safety of Man. Yeah, just a matter of getting back to that spot consistently, because... yeah, failing one jump away on something like this is unfortunate. When you do run through the whole thing, though, it is fairly quick. It is... I mean, its auto-scroll, and the current record is... minute 14, I think. Oh, okay, let's not cut too many corners on parts that are totally safe. Okay. I just gotta focus on this. I mean, I have been basically doing this segment on autopilot for a while, but it's kind of nice to have it down and be mostly confident about it. Yeah, I just need to find a really good, quick pattern getting into each of the poison segments. Yeah, hugging the left on that platform does make a difference. Although that does in fact require me to get out of there safely. Okay. I'm glad in retrospect that I did not try to push this as part of the same 4YM stream as everything else. I mean, I did put in about half an hour on this at the end of clearing the level with ink coins only, first time. But I was clearly in no state to take a serious run at this, and now we are improving, doing better and better. Progress is slow but steady. Yeah. Just gotta be quick and snappy with everything. Okay. Nope. Have to beat that first mushroom and not afford to hesitate like that. But yeah, I can clearly get into that segment faster. And the fact that I'm a little behind is the thing I need to correct. Like, it is all about maintaining your speed relative to the auto-scroll after the first 2 coins that are past CP2. It'll be nice to look at some low execution puzzles after this, including stepping through the escape room, just to give my thumbs a bit of a break. But yeah, I think after this one we will be doing puzzles for the next bit. For sure. Platforming only goes so far. Okay, still losing the occasional attempt to silly things in the early segments, but thankfully not too many of them. Getting pretty fluent at it, for the most part. Okay. And let's just see it again. Yeah, gotta do short hops pretty much everywhere here. Okay, that felt pretty safe. That felt really safe. For YMM. Let's not die on that donut block, please. Okay, here's the sad cake. We got this previously. Just gives you a pig. And here's the big cake. And yeah, we can stop way through. I came completely unprepared to actually leave some kind of colorful comment or message. Hey, let's display comments in this room just to see how people are doing. All Strawberry Gang, good stuff. Golden Strawberry Gang. Hardest cake so far? Yeah, that's correct. Alright, let's leave a note. I'm not going to leave the easy card, unfortunately. I think that this level has earned a certain immunity from that. A cake about climbing. A mountain. Or a mountain. I love how it suggests Morton. I hope I have enough characters to do this. About climbing. Cliquishness. A cake. Question mark. Anyway, here's proof of cake. We did it. Fireworks at the very end. And here's the heart. And yeah, a cakewalk, apparently. Okay, we got it. Took a while. Obviously well behind the world record battle because we spent some time on cake. Or an auto-scroll. Apparently the world record on this was in fact a pitch battle that was heavily optimized. It's one of the few 4YMM speed records that is not currently held by the call. But yeah, okay, that wraps it up for week 6. That is kind of a fantastic way to finish it. I certainly hope that that's going to remain the hardest cake, but I'm also grateful for the opportunity to once again prove that I am actually quite serious about my principles about levels with no checkpoints, or with a hard mode option with no checkpoints. I mean, I tend to talk a lot about how much I like that kind of design. I guess this was certainly a test of my patience and fortitude.